Thank you very much, Mohammed. There, I am getting ahead of myself there. Given that there's so much happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo and in that region, there's concern that perhaps Felix Tshisekedi will not have capacity to fully dedicate himself to the African Union. Is that a valid concern?
Well, thanks for having me. I think Tshisekedi is in the position that all chairpersons of the African Union are whenever they assume the chairship of the African Union. He does have challenges at home with trying to consolidate power. Remember, when he came to power, he essentially was in a coalition with former President Joseph Kabila. He's also, and he actually acknowledged this today when he took over, that his own country is facing challenges in the eastern part with armed groups. So he is certainly going to be busy at home, but I don't think that it's going to prevent him entirely from assuming his duty as chair of the African Union. He has set up a task team within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that's going to assist him. He's also set up a high-level panel that has prepared all the priorities for the DRC this year, and this panel is going to also assist him throughout the year. So I don't foresee that he's not going to be able to carry out his continental duties. However, how far he goes, I am not quite sure. I think chairing the African Union is not an easy task, given the several priorities that the continent has.
Right. You mentioned the instability in eastern DRC in terms of the militia there. We also have the instability in the Central African Republic. He's also got issues that he needs to deal with in the Greater Lakes region, as well as the Sahel, amongst others. Given that the Democratic Republic of Congo has not ratified the AU's protocol establishing the Peace and Security Council, what will this essentially mean?
Well, I think that the work of the chairperson of the African Union is really around representing the continent, around driving the continental agenda. When it comes to peace and security, he cannot do anything on his own. There are mechanisms that exist, including the one you've just mentioned. The Peace and Security Council of the African Union is essentially the body that is tasked with making decisions that are binding on member states of the African Union when it comes to these issues. So President Tshisekedi will have to work through the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, through the African Union Commission, as well as the regional economic bodies that are also tasked with taking charge of issues within their purview. So if you look at the Sahel region, for instance, the Economic Community of West African States is involved. There's also an ad hoc mechanism called the G5 Sahel, and all of those setups are supposed to be working through the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, as well as, being perhaps receiving some kind of motivation or guidance from the chairperson of the African Union.
A number of countries will be heading to the polls this year. It would be interesting to see whether he will make pronouncements on election issues. Are we likely to see him do that, given how he came into power?
You've just answered the question. I think that it's going to be perhaps his toughest battle when it comes to elections, given the fact that he ascended to power in a rather controversial manner, which actually involved the mediation or discussions at regional as well as continental level with the Southern African Development Community and the African Union not seeing eye to eye on how to address the controversy around the elections of Felix Tshisekedi in 2018. The other aspect of this, of elections, is essentially that it revolves around what we commonly refer to as governance challenges. So your democratic governance, your respect for the rule of law, for constitutions, but also, fighting corruption and transparency in governance. Generally speaking. So I do not personally expect President Tshisekedi to be very vocal on issues of governance deficits, which includes your elections, but also issues around the rule of law and good governance. I think the focus of his chairship of the African Union is really going to be around the theme of the year, which is arts and culture, is probably going to do a lot of work on economic integration, making sure that the AFCFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, actually does take off. And I think lastly, one other focus area for him will be to make sure that the reform of the African Union, particularly the Commission, is rolled out in a proper manner.
Just very quickly for us, Mohammed, a lot of people asking about the relevance of the African Union itself, but is it fair to expect so much from one person given that this tenure is only for a year?
It is a recurring question. I think it goes beyond just the 1 year mandate of any chair of the African Union. The question is really about the relevance of the African Union as an institution that is working not only for their member states, not only for their governments and their heads of states, but for African people. I think that, typically this same question is asked about any intergovernmental organization. It is asked about the UN, and there's this saying that says, if the UN did not exist, we would have to create it. And I think this also does apply to the African Union. I think that one of the key importance of the African Union or relevance of the African Union is that at the very least, it is a platform where African states can come together and discuss issues of common interest. So I do think...
Unfortunately, Mohammed, we could talk about this the whole day. Mohammed Diatta is from the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you very much for your time.